Evening, folks. I'd like to call to order the zoning board of appeals meeting on Thursday night, November 30th, 2017, at 6 p.m. At this time, I would ask the ZBA members to introduce themselves from right to left, please.
My name is Jim Southworth.
Andrew Orr.
Sean Shoemaker.
Kurt Clayson.
Robert Lehman.
Okay. I would also at this time ask that any and all audience members please sign in at the sign-in sheet so we know who's here and attendance. And before we start our hearing this evening, we have to go through some formality of the election of officers. That time of the year. So I guess at this time, I would ask for a nomination for chairman.
I nominate Sean.
Second.
Yeah, Sean.
Second, okay, any discussion? All in favor? Okay, thank you.
Vice Chair and Secretary.
Vice Chair and Secretary. Okay. This time I would ask for a motion for a nomination for a Vice Chair.
Second.
I'd like to make a motion to nominate Kurt as vice.
That was a real quick second. That happened so quick.
Can I get those papers back?
Any discussion on this besides you? Any discussion? All set? All those in favor? Cool.
Are
Very
you not
well.
voting for yourself,
I
Kurt?
didn't think you can.
Yes, you can. You can vote.
And now I would take
Secretary.
nomination for secretary.
James Southworth was our other secretary.
Okay. Second.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor? Boom, boom.
Excuse me,
Very good.
Mr. Chair, who made the motion to nominate James?
Hmm?
Who made the motion to nominate James?
I thought
As
one of these
secretary.
guys did. I didn't.
I didn't see who
Oh.
nominated.
Oh, I think we just took off yours, said,
Yeah,
Oh,
no, I
it was
thought
the
you
other one
did.
from
I
last
thought
year?
someone here
Yeah.
did.
So-
I'm sorry. I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
Okay. Take a second again. Or do we need to do it over? Or?
No,
All right,
No.
very good.
they kind of nodded their head and I just didn't catch it, so,
Yep.
it's a purple note.
yeah.
All right, we've taken care of that business. The purpose of this hearing this evening is to review an undue hardship appeal request of Elijah Fuda, okay, I want to pronounce it correctly. Tax map 45, lot 001-677, 102 Sequoia Lane in North Waterboro.
I didn't get any
The
paper.
board has to decide if it has jurisdictions to hear this.
Correct.
I didn't get any paperwork.
Yeah, it was in, when we had the meeting a
Oh, it was
month
in
or
the
so
white
ago.
book?
It was
Oh,
with the
okay. I
notebook.
left that one at home.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's this.
I know,
Geez, I need a magnifying glass.
I know. But some of it's more.
At this point, we're deciding whether we've got jurisdiction. We can do that without paperwork. We'll
Right.
do the rest of it. They've asked for an appeal,
On hardship.
hardship appeal, and it seemed like that ahead, and I would say we have jurisdiction to hear this case. So that would be my motion, that we do have jurisdiction.
Seconded.
Okay, all those in favor? Okay.
Mr. Chair, the jurisdiction lies under Title 38, Section 4353, just for the record.
Okay. Voted, agreed. The butters request for postponement.
There are none that have been received. There were no abutters that had asked for a postponement.
Okay,
This is a standard form that I do ahead of time.
okay,
So when the letters went out, I always type it up just in case one comes in. I don't have to remember to go and add it back.
okay. So we didn't have any of those?
I received 2 phone calls from abutters that claimed they weren't abutters, and I said, well, we have to notify people 250 feet out. And they said, I don't know who owns the property now. Never been down that way. No objections. So,
Very good. At this time, I would ask the applicant and the representative to come to the podium and speak. That would be, just introduce yourself to everybody, and then we'll go into it.
Thank you. My name is Keith Jakes, and I'm an attorney with Woodman Edmonds. We're in Biddeford, Maine, and I represent Mr. Buda, who's seated blue shirt with next to me, and then Jack Taylor, who's seated next to him. If I may, I know, Mr. Ward, that you don't have the packet, but I do have a copy of the colored map, which may help give him some. It's Exhibit 3 in your packet. With the chair's permission, I'll give a copy to you for Mr. Ward to look at while I'm talking, just to give him some sense as to the property and what we're talking about. Is that okay?
Thank you.
Basically, we are here before you on an undue hardship variance request for the property located at 102 Sequoia Lane, right here in Waterboro. Mr. Buda purchased the property from HomeVest back in June of 2017. HomeVest is owned by Jack Taylor and his wife, Teresa Taylor. They had purchased the property from the estate of Alan Boldick, who was the first person to live on the property when the house was built back in 2002 or so. When HomeVest sold the property to Mr. Buda, as part of the sale, HomeVest agreed that it would construct a single-story, 14 by 24-foot attached single-car garage on the property. The house is sort of designed with a door for a garage, and they were just going to tack it on to the left of it. The garage as proposed would be 65.5 feet from the high water mark of Lake Arrowhead and 28.9 feet from Sequoia Lane. And you've got a survey, which is Exhibit 3 in most of your packets, which I just handed to Mr. Orr, that sort of orients you as to where the house is and where the proposed garage is going to be if the variance was requested, where it would be located. One of the things that's important here is that back in 2002, not you guys, but your predecessors on the Zoning Board of Appeals had granted a variance to Mr. Buda so that he could in fact construct the single-family property house on that lot. And it, like similar to this, it was built. There was a 30-foot front setback that was given and a 62-foot shoreland setback so that that property could be located on that lot. And that variance, to the extent you want to refer to it, is Exhibit 1 in your packet, basically, that was granted. And certainly when HomeVest agreed that it would build a single-car garage on this property, it wasn't being presumptuous and just assumed it could ignore setback requirements and ignore your zoning ordinance. But rather what was happening is that HomeVest understood that this variance had been granted, and understood also that because the variance had been granted, it ran with the property. And that may have been mistaken, but it was sort of a reasonable understanding at the time. And in fact, this oftentimes would be the case, except if you look at Exhibit 1, there's actually some specificity in that as to the size of the structure that would be built. And the size of the structure was describing the house and not just, it didn't describe the square footage of a garage. And that's, so what had happened is that prior to doing that, Mr. Taylor had talked to the Saco River Corridor Commission and the Lake Arrowhead Association to see if they would have any objection to it, and they did not as part of it. And then when he came to see the Code Enforcement Office here, Mr. Sherratt, he was informed that he would have to come back for another variance because the other variance was specific to the house and not just a general variance to the property. And that's why we're here today. So basically what we're looking for before you today is a variance that would take the shore setback requirement to 65 feet and the front setback requirement from 40 to 28 feet. So in fact, the garage would be situated further from Lake Arrowhead by 3 feet or so from what was from the house itself. As the garage is designed, it is a little closer to the road at 28.9 feet versus the 30 feet on the setback that was originally granted. But in effect, the setback requirement that we're looking the variance that we're looking for you is the same that was granted in connection with the house. And I guess I would submit two things. One is that I think it's appropriate for this board to grant a variance to allow the garage construction, but if it doesn't, the board could also consider granting an amendment to the original variance to allow a larger structure than what was originally situated. Running through the criteria a little bit, and bear with me if I get a little long-winded, but sometimes lawyers do that, particularly when they know they're the only one on the agenda and no one's pushing them from behind. But I'll try to hit the points, but it's all part of the packet that you had beforehand. And basically, we think that this is ripe for a variance with respect to this particular property. This isn't one of these situations where a developer is here looking to maximize and squeeze one extra lot in, or build something where it shouldn't be built so that they can increase their economic return. This is really a matter of somewhat of convenience and reasonable return for Mr. Buddha so that he can have a garage for he and his wife and his son to live on the property. Frankly, it cleans up the property, things can be stored inside, there's less runoff, and that it makes a lot of sense to put a garage on this structure. The garage doesn't require a sideline variance, so it doesn't take us any closer to the sidelines than are required. It really requires, in effect, the same variance that this board granted 14 years or so ago with respect to the structure, only moving it along another 14 feet, basically, for the 14 by 24-foot garage. When you take a look at the property, one of the criteria is that the need for a variance is not, that it's unique to the property and not basically everybody around needs the same variance, and therefore the board gets to the point of, in effect, doing spot zoning and changing things. In this particular instance, if you look at the maps, I think you can see it somewhat on 3, but then also on tab 7, which is a copy of your tax map. If you take a look at those things, this really is sort of unique to this particular property because somewhat of the shape of Lake Arrowhead. The lot is 1677, and I think it may be highlighted in your packet. But if you look at it, Lake Arrowhead takes a jog and chunks in towards Sequoia Lane there, so that the sideline on one side of these lots, on one side of the lot is 189, and the sideline on the side where the garage is 127 feet, which is sort of a 60-odd foot reduction, which is quite a big jog, and that's caused because of the high water mark of Lake Arrowhead. And if you look at all the other similar properties, almost all of them have depths of 180, 200 feet, 300 feet longer. And if, in fact, it was the same dimensions applied to all of or those dimensions applied to this lot, we wouldn't be here before a variance because we wouldn't need to do it. But we need to do it because of the shrinking of that sideline to 127. Another criteria that you need to look at is that it's not going to alter the essential characters of the locality. In this particular instance, this garage is no closer to Lake Arrowhead than the house structure is, really no closer, 1.1 feet closer to Sequoia Lane than the current existing structure. Doesn't meet side setback issues. If you take a look at some of the photographs that are attached as Exhibit 8, there's well-established buffers all around this property. The lot across the street is an unbuildable lot, is my understanding. So there's no impact. It's like the garage is going to impact sight lines from a property that's across the street. For the most part, I suspect that most people will be like the two people who called in who didn't realize they weren't neighbors. No one's going to know that this happened, basically, because it's not going to affect anybody. And so because of that, basically, the essential character of the locality is going to stay the same. 14 by 24 garage isn't going to affect nearby land and structures, and it's not going to affect the best interest of the community, which some of the additional variance criteria that you need to look at. And then finally, I guess the hardship is not the result of actions taken by the applicant or prior owner. This isn't one of these situations where somebody split off lots and created setback issues for themselves, or built a structure ignoring everything and then came in and said, mea culpa, can you fix it? We're here before asking you to grant a variance that's really the result of the shape of the land and Lake Arrowhead. And we think, frankly, will be a nice addition to this building and a nice addition to the locality, and will clean things up, give some storage, prevent stuff, lawnmowers and snow blowers and gas tanks from leaking out into the. So it's really going to contain everything. So at this point, I guess I'll stop talking and answer any questions that people might have. And if I can't answer them, I'll look to Mr. Buda or Mr. Taylor to provide you with as much information as you need as you evaluate this.
I guess one of the things that I need clarification on, because he brought it up in his request, was can we alter an existing variance that was granted in 2002? I don't believe we have the authority to do that, but
You don't have the authority to do
I
that.
didn't think that we did, but I wanted some clarification to make sure that we don't.
Mr. Chair, at this time, I want to submit some information that we just got today, if I may.
Yep.
The
Ken?
Department of Environmental Protection requires that we submit any shoreline variance to them prior to a decision from this board, and we got that reply today.
Okay.
Take a couple minutes to read that.
Does the Saco River thing apply to this?
It does not.
Thanks.
Sorry.
Yes, you can do one to see. They're on the computer, so I can run more if I need them.
Have you folks been provided a copy of this? An opportunity to read it?
We have, thank you.
Do we need to read this into the meetings or just add it into the meeting minutes?
That just came in, so it does have a concern on it, so I would probably read it into the meeting.
Okay. chance to look this over. So, this time, I'm going to read a letter that the town received today, November 30th, 2017, from the Department of Environmental Protection for the state of Maine. This letter was drafted and issued by Mike Morse, Assistant Shoreline Zoning Coordinator, Bureau of Land Resources. Correspondence is as written. Dear members of the Board of Appeals, thank you for forwarding the above reference appeal application to the department. We are writing to provide our position on the matter of the board's consideration. The appellant seeks a shoreline setback variance for construction of a 14 by 24 foot garage attached to an existing residential structure. The existing residential structure was allowed to be constructed 62 feet from the shoreline as a result of a shoreline setback variance granted by the board in 2002. The variance was very explicit, approving only a residential structure not to exceed 26 foot by 36 foot. And the variance did not simply establish a new setback distance for the entire lot. As such, the proposed garage addition is subject to a new and separate variance review by the board, separate from the variance granted in 2002. As you are aware, the Board of Appeals, the Appeals Board, to grant a variance in shoreland zone, the applicant must demonstrate, and the board finds that the strict application of the terms of the ordinance would result in an undue hardship. Well, all four parts of this four-part undue hardship test within the town's ordinance must be met to obtain the variance. Of particular importance is this variance appeal is the first part, which states that the land in question cannot yield a reasonable return unless the variance is granted. This, as I am sure you're aware, is a very difficult standard to meet. The courts have consistently concluded that existing development on a lot, or even an existing use of the lot, already constitutes a reasonable return. It is also the department's opinion that the existing development and use on the subject parcel yields a reasonable return in its current state. The proposed garage is merely for convenience rather than necessity. The owner presently has beneficial use of the land, and the land clearly yields a reasonable return without the granting of the variance. The proposed garage structure certainly could not have received a variance from the board as part of the variance review in 2002 either. Therefore, the department strongly urges the board to deny the variance application on the basis that the appellant clearly cannot demonstrate undue hardship. Page 2. Additionally, during our review of the variance, the applicant became apparent that there is a concrete block patio as depicted on the applicant's site plan, Exhibit 3. Is a possible violation of the town shoreline zoning ordinance provisions. The 2002 variance was granted for a 26 foot by 36 foot residential dwelling structure exclusively. And the town's ordinance otherwise strictly prohibits new structures within 100 feet of a great pond. The department requests that the town investigate this matter, and if the patio is determined to be in violation of the ordinance, then the department further requests the town to require its immediate removal. Thank you in advance for your thoughtfully considering our comments. Please contact me if you have any other questions or seek further clarification in this matter. His phone number to be reached. And that's Mike Morse, Assistant Shoreline Zoning Coordinator for the Bureau of Land Resources. Okay.
And I don't know what the proper procedure is. I just received this, but I do have some comments on it if at some point. I don't know if this is the right time or if you, Mr. Stewart wants to talk first and then I can comment on it, but.
I mean, the letter speaks for itself. I don't have any other comments. I guess you can hear what he wants to say. At some point, you're going to have to close the public hearing and debate.
Yeah.
And I say that only because normally I would have received this before the hearing and I would have addressed it in my preliminary comments. And I'll be real quick on this because I realize you guys have work to do in considering it. But I think it's important for this board to know that the DEP similarly sent a letter objecting to the variance request in 2002 when this board heard it the first time. It's not unusual for the DEP to oppose variance requests within the shoreline zone. And I think it's a couple of issues there is, for the DEP to say that this board would not have granted a variance or could not have granted a variance for the garage back in 2002 simply isn't true. In 2002, the board could have granted a variance for whatever it wanted to do in 2002, and the structure could have been presented as a home with a garage, and they could have granted the variance at that point for that. If you look at the record, back in 2002 and you look at the decision, it named the size of the structure because that was what the property owner was looking at. It wasn't like the ZBA at that point looked at it and said, okay, you want to build a house that's twice as big, we don't want it that big, we're going to shrink it down. That was the request for those dimensions. That is what had gone before the Saco River Corridor Commission. That's what would have been approved. So those were the numbers that the board was hearing, and that's why it was that size. Now, they may or may not have granted it for a garage, but I'm before you saying, of course they would have, and the DEP is saying, of course they wouldn't have, and ultimately what I'm saying is neither one of us know for sure what they would have done. But I think if you look at it, you can certainly understand why it was shrunk to that size. With respect to the patio reference at the end, I respectfully submit that's not an issue for you to consider today. It's not part of the variance request. I can't tell you a lot about that patio. It was there before Mr. Buddha bought the patio. It was there before Mr. Homevest bought the structure. So I can't tell you based upon now when it was put there. But it's not a new structure by any means, and it's not anything that these two gentlemen would have done. Other than that, I guess I'll answer any questions that you have. Otherwise, I'll just sit down.
I have a question for the code officer. Glenn, expansions of property within shoreline zoning is permitted up to used to be permitted up to a 30%. Is that still with the new shoreline rules that are out? Can they request an expansion for up to 30% of this property because it was a water record prior to zoning?
The criteria has changed. As you know, Water Road adopted the new shoreline ordinance the first of this year. So the criteria has changed. They can go for a 30% expansion, but depending on how close they are to the water, they're restricted on the total size of the structure. So, within 25 feet, they're allowed, I'm sorry, I don't have that in front of me. 25 feet, you're allowed so much square footage. 75 feet, that limit expands. 100 feet, it expands again. So it's 30% capped at a certain square footage, depending on how close to the water you are. And I think 25 feet, I think the total structure can't be any bigger than 1,500 square feet. Bear with me, Mr. Chair.
You got it.
I think it's smaller.
How big is the existing house?
It takes 900,
I was looking, trying to see how big the house is.
It's
24 by 36.
24 by 36, okay.
so it's covering 864 square feet right now, but the original permit was for 936 square feet. So they built it 72 square feet smaller than
Yeah,
what they were.
that's what I was sort of saying.
Yeah, I stand corrected. If they're within 25 feet, the total square footage can't be larger than 800 square feet. If they're within 75 feet of high water, the structure can't be larger than 1,000 square feet. This is the total structure. And 100 feet is 1,500 square feet.
So they're asking an additional 336. So they currently have 864, and they're asking for 336. Help if I went the other way. So they're asking for 1,200 total.
Well,
Now,
that's for a non-conforming structure. So this isn't a non-conforming structure. But the garage would be at this
Okay.
stage of the game. But they're after a variance for undue hardship. So I see where you're going with this, Kurt.
Yeah.
So that garage is less than 75 feet.
And a 30% expansion of the original construction.
Yeah.
The original was only 259 square feet, and they're asking for 336.
Yep. But they still need to conform to the setbacks, which they don't. So even if they went for an expansion, they couldn't meet the setbacks, so they'd have to come for a variance, so they'd have to apply for a variance for undue hardship, just the same, because they can't meet the setbacks. Sean?
I'm having a little struggle with that because to me, it's a non-conforming lot of record prior to zoning. So that makes it a non-conforming lot.
Yep.
So
Lake Arrowhead is tricky.
I understand, I know that.
Yep.
And that's where I've got a little
Yep.
problem with it because to me, it is a non-conforming lot.
It is, and it's an approved subdivision to boot.
Right. So any structure you put on there, new or old, unless the lot is of the size of the minimum size
Right.
for that area, would be considered
Yep,
non-conforming.
and hence, that's why they had to get the zoning board variance to do the house. So now you're looking at a garage that can't meet the setbacks, and they're asking for a variance of undue hardship. So if they were just asking for an expansion per shoreline rules, they could do that, but they'd still have to meet setbacks. They can't meet setbacks because the garage has to be legally conforming now because it's a new structure. And they can't be legal conforming because they can't meet setbacks, and that's why they're here tonight.
So
I was thinking a little with you.
Yep, not a problem.
So all else considered, if it was a conforming lot and they could meet the setback, they could only expand the original structure 30%.
If it's in shoreline, correct.
If it was in shoreline. So
Yeah.
that would mean the original structure, now is it what was approved or what they built? Because what they approved was larger than what they built.
What they approved is larger than what they built?
Yeah, it's 70,
Oh, I see what you're saying.
they approved 2636 and they built 2436, so it's 72 square feet smaller than what they approved. So is it 30% of the original number or 30% of what they built?
30% of what they built.
So that's only 259 square feet,
Yeah.
and this garage is 336 square feet.
Mhm.
So the garage is already bigger than if
Bigger.
everything was legal.
Bigger than what would be allowed.
Ain't you got about 1,724 square feet in that house, with 2 floors?
Is it just, I thought it was just the footprint.
Yeah.
No, you go by
Square
square
footage.
footage.
Oh,
of the
square
whole
foot, okay, I'm
house.
sorry.
So-
It's not volume anymore.
Right,
It's
it's
all
not
square footage.
volume,
So you
it's
got
square
at
footage.
least 700, 1,700.
Yeah, you're, I'm sorry, Dwayne, I thought it was
And,
footprint.
No.
Okay.
But it looks like the basement might be livable too, so you
Yeah.
got another 800 square feet or part of 864 square feet in the basement that's square footage of that building.
The struggle that I'm having with this and not being able to ask for that 30% expansion in the non-conforming lot within the shoreline setback is that it's an attached structure.
Yep.
Not an unattached structure, it's an attached structure, which would be an expansion to existing. And it seems to me that there's a multitude of properties in the town that's been allowed to expand in a non-conforming where they can't meet that setback, but they can meet that 30% threshold.
Right.
And that's where I've got a little, I'm trying to see what the difference would be, and I'm not
Yep.
seeing it.
Let me make a suggestion first,
Okay.
is to either, you haven't concluded the public hearing.
Right.
So if the public's not done speaking, then you have to ask for further public input or close the public hearing. Once you close the public hearing, then we can get further into this debate.
Okay, yep, we can do that. I was just asking while you were up there. you
Yep,
know, if you-
no, I'll stay right up here unless someone else wants to
Yep.
talk.
Anybody else have any other questions, Glenn?
Could I just add something before you close the public hearing?
Yeah,
I believe that if the 30% issue is not an issue, if you take a look at the structure, there actually are photographs in here so you can take a look at it. It's 2 stories plus a living space in the basement, so there's plenty of square footage to allow the 30%. That's not the issue before you. The issue before you is that the structure that's going to be built is going to be within the setback requirements. If this property was 100 feet from Lake Arrowhead and 40 feet from Sequoia, I don't think any of us would be here, because I think
That's correct.
I think Mr. Charette would agree that 30% expansion is not a problem, basically. But we have to come to you because the garage, like the house that's built there, is within the setback requirements.
It says 30% wide.
Because this is from the water.
anybody else have any questions?
And here it would be over here.
I think that's being misinterpreted,
You don't see
because I think that is.
Mr. Chair, you probably should close public hearing. I can see
Yeah.
the board starting to debate.
Bring it back in here. Any further questions before we close the public hearing?
No.
Anybody else in the public like to speak at this time? Okay, this time we're gonna close the public hearing portion of the meeting. And...
Time, sir?
Hmm?
Time that you're closing? I can't see it. Good.
6:37.
Thank you.
This is-
I want to say 18, 30 seconds.
All right, let's, if you guys are gonna ask questions or have conversation, let's bring us all in on this and bring it through me, please, so I know what you're asking,
Well,
or what you're bringing.
Glenn had mentioned earlier that it was square footage of living space and not necessarily, or I think that's the way I understood it, not necessarily the footprint of the building. And, or maybe it was the lawyer that stated that, but according to shoreline zoning, it is the footprint of the building.
Which is a square footage. I mean, if
Square
it's
footage.
if it's 2 floors,
Yeah, then you add.
you have to add it.
Yeah,
If it's a permitted basement, we don't know if this basement is permitted or not. So, yes, it's the footprint, but it's the square footage inside that footprint.
okay,
Yeah, so if you have 2 floors, you have to count it.
right. Okay, yeah. That is correct. It's
And just to make it
all-
clear, the Saco River has no authority for our shoreline ordinance or our zoning ordinance. They're their own entity. They have their own rules and regulations, and we don't abide by them or enforce them.
Yeah. Well, I'm still getting back to the struggle of this 30% and why that couldn't come into play here instead of a variance. Because it is a lot of record prior to zoning, so that makes the lot non-conforming.
Yep.
And you can expand a non-conforming structure,
You,
correct?
well, you can with a limit.
With
Yep.
a limit,
Yep.
yeah?
But you can't make it any more non-conforming, which is what this is doing, pulling it closer
Any
to the road.
expansion, any expansion on a non-conforming lot would create that.
Yeah.
That's not really, that you couldn't do something that's, I think more, they're looking there at more, you know, if it's a residential zone and you're gonna do an expansion to it on the water, you can't go put an automotive shop in. It's really more, I don't see it as, you have the ability to expand your home. within that 100-foot shoreline with a 30-foot expansion, so 30% expansion, so you're automatically gonna make whatever you do more non-conforming to that lot. That's
Yeah.
fact.
Well, you,
Right, okay.
the criteria says you can expand as long as you meet a different section of the shoreline zoning ordinance. In that section, it says you have to meet the setbacks. If you can't meet the setbacks, then you're applying for a variance of undue hardship.
But what if a camp is on the water and the entire camp is within the 100-foot because it was built
Yep.
prior to, and now you want to expand that 30%, you can expand that, attach that 30% to that structure and be within that 100 feet because you
can.
are, because
Yeah,
you're expanding.
That's true. You
So
can.
that's what I have a conflict.
But you still need a variance. I don't have the authority to let them do that.
Okay.
I understand that.
So if someone if this gentleman, perfect example of what we're looking at tonight, he wants to put up a garage, he can't meet the setbacks, I don't have the authority to grant him a variance. He has to come to the board to get that. Regardless if he's looking for an expansion or not, if he can't meet the setbacks from high water or sidelines, he's got to come to the zoning board of appeals.
And I'm just asking because this
Yeah.
is a change from the norm.
Yeah.
Typically, a non-conforming lot, new construction, they come, but expansions typically went before the planning board for an expansion.
Well, we know that's history now.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
so things have changed.
Things have changed. Things have gotten legal, I guess, you might say.
Okay, so this meets the 30% expansion. So all we're talking about.
He didn't calculate that, they did
No.
no calculations for
Yeah.
that whatsoever.
Well, if you're counting both square footage of both levels, I think Kurt
Yeah,
is.
but that's not what he's brought to us.
That's correct.
I've asked this question because I want to know, and I think the public needs to know, because there's a lot of lots in this town that are on the water, how it's gonna be affected in the future when we run into these situations. And is there a vehicle besides the variance that he would be able to go to and ask for a request for a 30% expansion?
No.
Without a variance?
No. No. Even if he wanted to put a second floor on this structure without increasing the width, that's an expansion. That would be calculated to his 30% cap. And in this situation, he would be capped at 1,000 square feet.
Okay. And with all due respect, Glenn, you may be 100% correct,
Yeah.
but from what I've known and what we've seen and done in the past, to be honest with you, at this point, I would like to ask for some clarification from our council on that particular question. Because I think it's important for us to know how things are impacted from the new shoreline zoning requirements of the state and
So what is the
so my
exact?
question, I would like to ask, take the time to ask our attorney, the town's attorney, for clarification into whether a appellant could request a 30% expansion of a structure that's within the 100-foot shoreline zone of any water in the town, without requiring a variance for that.
I can ask that, but she's going to answer yes if that person can meet the setbacks.
And
If that's what the board chooses to
that's
do.
what I would like to have for information, just because this isn't just one house. Unfortunately, we've got so many properties within the lake that's gonna ask this question of us. Down the road, it could happen.
Oh, yeah. Here's
So-
the actual one that they sent us on shoreline. This is the new shoreline variance.
Yeah.
So the question is, can an applicant request an expansion without ZBA approval? or without
I
ZBA?
really want to know if the person owns a house that's within 100 feet of the water, and because these lots are postage, postcard size on a lot of these lots around Ossipee,
Yep.
around Arrowhead, whatever the body of water is in the town, with that person, if they're within 100 feet of the water, there's no way they can be setbacks because the lot's small, but they had the ability to expand up to 30% as long as it was attached, expansion. Is there a vehicle there that they can still do that? Without having to ask for a reduction in setbacks
Without ZBA
to
review.
accomplish that?
So can an applicant request an expansion, a 30% expansion, within 100 feet of the water without ZBA review?
Without a variance of the ZBA. I mean, and it's just because there's countless properties that have done that. People come in, here's your drawing, here's my house, I want to add 30% to it. I'm 62 feet from the water, and the new one's not going to be any closer, but it's going to be closer to the setback, whether it be front yard setback, side setback, or whatever.
Yep.
And been able to do that. I don't know. Is there a vehicle out there for them to do that?
I don't think so, but if the board wishes to do that, then I will do that.
Okay. That's a question that I have, because I really
guess-
want to know the answer to
Sean,
that.
I was the same way.
I think that's important. Not just, this case has brought it to the forefront, because it's the first one we've actually dealt with since the new ordinances have been put into place, so there will be questions we
Yep.
may have.
But your question is if they could have another way to do that without coming to
Without having
ZBA.
an variance.
But they're here to get a
Right.
variance, so, I mean,
He did not, they got one for the original structure, now they want to expand that structure.
right, but they're already here, so, I mean, if there's another way to do it without getting a variance, and we approve it or deny it,
We're not gonna approve or deny until we get the interpretation or the information back from Natalie, to be
Well,
honest with you.
yeah, obviously you'll have to get a board approval on that before I call Natalie.
Right, and we'll do that. I think we'll be able to accomplish that.
Okay.
I mean, how's the rest of the board feel with me asking that?
Most
the
take a
attorney?
vote on it.
well, I'm still confused.
We're still in the discussion.
That's why I want the attorney.
These people, you're asking if there's another way to do this without going to the ZBA? To do the 30% expansion, if there's another way to do that? And if the answer is yes, there is, and they meet that, then great.
Then they can-
And if it's no, then they have to come back again? I'm
No,
just,
we're not ending this hearing. We're not
Okay.
ending this, we'll
Continue.
not postpone,
You'll continue it.
Continue.
we'll continue it until we get this information. If the information it turns out to be pertinent to this, then we'll continue it. If she comes back and says, yep, they could do this and this, they can withdraw their request for the appeal, correct? And go another route. I'm just saying, I have no idea what the answer is gonna be. But the answer to your question is, we're not stopping this hearing, starting the whole game all over again. We're gonna continue this hearing till we get the information, and depending on what information we get back, it may direct them to do that, and they could request at that time to withdraw their appeal. Because if they're denied, there's another whole process that's gonna happen, and I'd like to explore that and get information at the same time that clears up some of these items. And this is a big one to me, because we've always been able to expand 30% for a non-conforming structure on a non-conforming lot, plain and simple.
But has those cases always come to the ZBA?
no, they used to go to the
We
planning
used to go to the
were
planning board.
planning board, that's what we used to do.
And you guys used to issue variances, which
No,
are,
we would do dimensional changes.
Dimensional changes.
Exactly.
which our council determined that it was illegal. So now that's why we're here in front of the zoning board of appeals. So what the planning board used to hear for variances for a shoreline setback, now you guys are hearing it. I'll be glad to do this, but honestly, we're probably wasting our time, but I will be glad to do this. I mean, the applicant probably doesn't have anything to lose at this stage of the game. It may have something to gain. I don't know.
What would be the gain?
The gain would be that I'm wrong, and Natalie says, yeah, they don't have to go to the zoning board of appeals to get a 30% expansion. But what she's going to say is if they can meet the setbacks. That's what she's going to
So,
say.
and that's kind of what I'm looking at. I'm looking at, you know, the garage is moving further away from the lake than the house is, so you're becoming less, it's not as unconforming as the house. So, and the sidelines don't need a variance. So basically, I looked at this more that we're just looking at from the road to the garage variance because that's becoming more non-conforming.
No, we're looking at the road to the garage and from the garage to the lake. You have two issues. It's not one, it's two. Because you got two frontages that you can't meet.
Right.
If you were,
Left side and the lake
if you
side.
could meet the 40-foot setback from the front and not meet the lake, then it's only one. Right now, they have two issues. It's not one issue. They have from the road to the front and from the back to the lake. So there's two issues there. It's not one. Yeah. And you could be right, and I just want, there's so many properties in this town that I think we might as well start getting the answer now, because
Yep.
there's a lot of properties that are within 100 feet, and any expansion is gonna be within that 100 feet.
Yep.
And they definitely could be encroaching on the setbacks
And
in
that's
those
why
areas,
they-
and you've got some setbacks, if you, depending on the district. This happens to be Lake Arrowhead, which is a residential, village residential zone, so the setbacks are less.
Yeah.
You get on to the lake, Ossipee Lake, and those have 75-foot front yard setbacks. So I just struggle with the fact that it may be difficult for someone to expand property and meet the setbacks when they
It will
could
be.
a year ago
Yeah, it could be
by
difficult.
asking for this.
Yep, it could be difficult.
Yeah.
In DEP's mind, their thought is to eliminate all non-conforming lots, or at least not make them any more non-conforming than they are. And they have said that out loud numerous times. And that's why they're so steadfast on not allowing this type of expansion. But if that's what the board wishes me to do, I will do it.
That is what I would like to see. And that's why I'm in discussion with the rest of the board and see how you guys feel about this. And I guess I would ask the appellant representative at this time if you want to move forward tonight and not want me to look into that. I'm gonna let you,
Mr. Chair, you'd have to open public hearing again to do that.
I can't ask him a question.
I would open public hearing.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep. And then I'm gonna reopen a public hearing, so that I can ask this.
Well, certainly, we,
Make a motion. Make a motion.
Make a motion that we reopen the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor? Okay.
I mean, while we obviously would prefer to have the board vote on it today and grant the variance so that we could move forward with this project, certainly we respect the board's desires and wishes, and if the board wants further information before it acts on the variance, then so be it. We'll abide by what you people would like to do moving forward on this thing. You know, if I could look in the crystal ball and see 5-0 votes to grant the variance, then I'd say, no, absolutely, let's deal with it. But if people are not comfortable voting because they have some hesitation, they want to know this final piece before, then certainly we respect your decision there.
All right. I guess we'll,
Now you want to reclose the public hearing.
reclose, make a motion to close the public hearing at this time.
Second.
6:52? 53?
Something like that.
Second on that?
Second.
All in favor? Okay. All right. I
So
guess
let me-
we can,
Let me get the question straight one more time. So can an applicant who has property within 100 feet of the water request an expansion without ZBA review?
I guess I would change that to not necessarily an applicant. Can a property owner of a non-conforming structure and a non-conforming property prior to zoning, and it's non-conforming because the law was established prior to zoning, can they request a 30% expansion even though they can't meet the setbacks?
Without ZBA review?
Without ZBA,
Yeah.
without going to the ZBA.
Okay. I'll type that up and email it to you to make sure I've got it the way you want it read.
Setbacks, but the setbacks would be no less than what they already have.
What's that?
Your setback, when you say they can't meet the setbacks, but they're not going any closer to the setbacks than what they already are.
Dwayne, you want to introduce yourself just for the record?
Dwayne Woodson, one of the selectmen in town of Wardrobe,
Liaison to the ZBA.
ZBA.
And that goes back to, whatever structure is done is not gonna create a more non-conforming.
It could, because now you're making that structure closer to the sideline.
But it's not encroaching on the sideline
No,
setbacks.
he's not closer to the water,
Right.
Not closer to the water, it's not closer to the sides.
so he's, granted, without looking at this a little bit further, he may not be making it more non-conforming. But that's not the issue here.
I understand
Yeah.
that, but that may be part of the criteria is to make it not more non-conforming.
Yep, but in the end of the day, if he can't meet the setbacks, he needs a variance. Do we all understand that?
Yes.
Okay. Do we also all understand the code enforcement officer can't issue variances? The only board that can do that is the ZBA.
And he's
And,
two ways, not three, right?
Correct.
This one still meets the setback from the property line in that area.
From the sidelines.
Sideline, yeah.
yeah,
It's just
yeah.
the existing structure, the same. Matter of fact, it's a foot and a half, almost, farther away.
Well, from the water, but it's a foot and a
Yeah.
half closer to the road.
Yep.
So when you bring it back to where it needs to go, it's gonna end up, well, but their variance is down to less than that.
Yeah.
With their original one.
I don't know, just to make it clear, you need to be 100 feet back from the water.
Right.
Okay, everybody understands that with any new
When you
structure.
were reading before, you had it 50 feet and then at 75 feet.
25 feet.
25,
75.
Right, that's a criteria in the shoreline ordinance.
Right.
For non-conforming structures.
Right.
Okay, that's not,
Exactly.
where's the 100-foot coming from then?
100 foot, you can't have a new structure within
New
100 feet.
structure.
Yeah. If you come in today, you wanna build a new house, you'll be 100 feet from the water.
Okay.
But you've always had the ability to expand a property within that 100 feet shoreline up to 30%.
Right, no, I understand
And
that.
I'm
about that,
concerned
yeah.
if that's truly the situation where they'd have to have a variance every time because they're never gonna meet that 100 foot,
Nope, they never will.
then I'm extremely concerned about all the structures that are in town and people will not be able to expand.
That's not the way I'm reading this at all, because we have an ordinance that says that you can expand a non-conforming building 30%.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's the question here. I think the question
That
here
is.
is more, you're moving it closer to the road. I mean, I live on Ospey Lake, and I've seen houses get expanded off to the side instead of closer to the water, or moving it back, they just move to the side
But what
because
he's saying
they're
now,
following, they're not getting more non-conforming than
Yeah,
the
because
original
you're moving-
structure.
they're, no matter
The
where
only-
you move it, you add on to it, you're adding on. Your sideline, front, rear, whatever, you're still
But you're
adding
not
on.
getting more non-conforming in this one, except for moving closer to the road. That's the only more non-conforming, because you're allowed by shoreline zoning to expand 30%.
And that's what I'm asking about.
Yeah.
That's what I want the clarification for.
With a cap, depending on how close you are to the water.
Yeah.
Right, it changes.
Yep.
Well, it
Because you're not
changes
meeting
with
100
different
foot.
numbers, but it always says 30%
Okay. Now let's-
or
Yeah, so the garage is a new
Whichever's greater.
structure.
garage.
And we all understand that. So legally, it should meet the 100-foot setback, which it can't.
Is it a new structure, or is
It
it
is.
an expansion off the
It's a
building?
new structure. It's an expansion, but it's a new structure. So technically, it needs to be 100 feet back from the water. He can't meet that, so he's here for variance.
So that's
Every
gonna,
house that's within 100 feet of the water in this town will not, unless they have the setback from side, 100 feet from the lake, and they have setback from the front road, will not be able to expand.
If this was a detached garage,
You
I would
couldn't
agree
build
with
it
that
anyway.
statement.
Yeah.
But because it's attached to the house, to me, in my opinion, it's an expansion of that building, so that would fall under the 30%
That's what
expansion.
I'm
of
asking.
square footage.
That's the way I
That's
feel.
exactly what I'm asking.
Yeah.
Well, it does, but you still need to meet the setbacks.
I understand that.
Okay.
I understand that piece, but if it's a 30% expansion and it met the setbacks
We
from the
wouldn't be discussing
sidelines.
it. No, be
No,
from
no.
the lake, the road, all
Listen,
setbacks.
well, if, I understand your point, but if, in the shoreline zoning, if this wasn't becoming more non-conforming, shoreline zoning already says you can expand a building by 30%. It already says that. So if it says that you can expand by 30% and you're not getting closer to the lake, and you're not getting closer to the sidelines, and you're not getting closer to the front yard, then Glenn could issue that permit without going to the ZBA.
Only if he can meet the setbacks.
so the only reason you're here
On the
tonight,
30% expansion, you can't approve something that meets all these things and it doesn't become more non-conforming.
Well, if he meets all the setbacks,
If it met all the setbacks.
if he meets the criteria of 12B, I think, which states you have to meet all the setbacks,
Yeah,
then I can issue a permit.
which,
They can meet the setbacks. They're not 100 feet from the water, and they're not 40 feet from the road.
That's what we're.
but that's what I'm, exactly what I'm saying. I think we're saying the same thing, but to me, this is a 30% expansion. You're not getting closer to the lake. You're not impeding on the sidelines. So you're not becoming more non-conforming except for the distance from the road in.
Except for the distance from the road and the distance from the lake, because you gotta look at that. You've gotta look at that.
But that's
And that's what I'm
clear here.
asking, is do they have the ability to ask for that expansion?
They
Like
do
I
it
said.
right here.
Another quick question, is this a two-story garage?
no,
Or just one, a flat?
Single story,
Okay,
single story garage.
just to make, make sure on that one.
Steve, you did the survey on this? So you pulled it on the corner of the garage, you're at 28.9, that's squared off, that's your shortest radius right out of it. Doesn't look like you could shift 6 more feet back, because then we'd be closer to the lake, right? Dimensionally, like if you move
You
parallelograms.
slid it on the house?
Yeah. You're still not gonna get because if you move it back, is it gonna change the arc of the angle, which would,
No.
Okay.
No, you're not, I mean, if you move it, and I think that's the way it was, why it was designed, the way it was designed, to keep it
That isn't gonna
not,
matter anyway.
Yeah,
At this
not
point,
closer to the lake, then you're gonna encroach on the road a little
I
bit.
just worry about like.
no, I know where you're going with that, but at this point, no matter what this number is, it's under 40, it doesn't matter whether it's 29 or 35 feet, it doesn't matter. My issue is that we've always had the ability to expand the property that's within a 100-foot shoreland, and I'm concerned about that, not being able to do that for a non-conforming lot. If you're creating the lot today, it's another story. These lots were created back in the 60s and approved and multiple buildings, so I just want to know, I personally, as a board member and been on it a long time, been through a lot of these, I really would like to have that clarification from the attorney. And I would make a motion that we seek the advice of the attorney for the question that I presented to the code enforcement officer. And I would entertain a second on that. Motion's been made by me. Do I have a second? Second? Any discussion?
So, with this, you're gonna delay the meeting.
To delay the outcome.
You're gonna delay the outcome. That's what we're voting on, right?
Yeah. We're gonna, if we agree to ask this question, then we're gonna move into, for a motion for a continuance of the hearing.
I feel like she's gonna come back and she's gonna say exactly what Glenn just said and exactly what it says in here.
You know what? Maybe, and you gotta understand the number of properties in this town that's gonna be impacted by that. So I think it's due diligence for us to ask that question before we sit here and vote otherwise. Because this isn't just one case. This is one case today. There's more gonna come. If this is the actual outcome comes and this is how we have to abide by it, you're gonna see more of this. Every single expansion within Ossipee Lake is gonna come before us. It's gonna have to.
Gonna have to.
Which
It's gonna have
used to go to
And
the
I'm
planning
concerned
board.
about that.
Which used to go to the planning board.
A lot of them went to the planning board.
But if-
Because they were non-conforming lot.
If the planning board had the ability to just, you guys changed?
No, we actually never had we were doing variances, and it's against state
You
law to
were
do a
doing-
variance.
Right, I understand
But
that.
our ordinances allowed, in there, it allowed the planning board to reduce the setbacks down to 10 feet for a non-conforming lot and a non-conforming structure. That is reality. They had the ability, it was in our zoning ordinance, it was clearly in the table, without question. That has been changed, apparently with the new zoning. I want to know if that's actually not applicable at all anymore. And if it is, there's going to be a lot of problems down the road. And I think we need to have clarification on it. So we know we can deal with this case and cases coming forward. We know what we actually have. But it's always been the ability because it was in the zoning. It was in the ordinance that allowed them to do that.
And
So,
that's the only way they got the zoning on passed in 1977, 76.
77.
so I have,
That part of the chapter was the only way that zoning was passed.
I mean, our only issue at planning board was the state says that the only people that can do a variance, setback is the zoning board, and that was our only argument was if it ever got challenged, the board didn't have the authority to, even though the ordinance said it, state law says we couldn't have done it. The planning board couldn't have done it.
It's never been tested in the court system.
yeah, if your ordinance says that you have the ability to reduce the setbacks, that's what it says you can do.
But the
Plain and simple. An ordinance is an ordinance, and that's what it's always provided. And by changing this is gonna have serious ramifications to a lot of property owners in town. So I just want us to do our due diligence and investigate this and know what the real law is now according to our ordinances and the state's shoreline zoning. And I just think that it's prudent for us to do this. It really is. I'm not trying to put it off, and we can give them a decision. We can sit here and vote on it. They may not like it. But and then at the final outcome, or they may like it. You never know. But this is a vehicle that we need to look at this. That's my opinion.
I agree
And
with
I've
your.
made the motion.
I agree with your opinion.
Yeah.
Let's move forward.
Yep. And we've got a second, and we've had.
Well, can I just, one more thing is, I don't disagree with where you're going. I actually like where you're going, but basically, this was at the planning board stage before. exactly what he's asking to do, would be to expand the property and change setbacks. And that used to get approved at the planning board. So if they say there is another route to do, what other route would that be? I mean, would it be going back to the planning board, which we were already told it wasn't legal? Or would it be in the code enforcement's hands, or,
Which we know he can't do.
or, I mean, where do we think it belongs?
It belongs here, it's gonna come back here.
It may, but there's some advice that's gonna come along with
Yep.
that.
Yep.
You know, and it may end up right back here.
Yeah. I'm okay. I like the way you're thinking. I really do, because
Just understand.
I agree with you. There are a lot of properties that are in the same
It's-
situation.
It's an immense, unbelievable, the ramifications down the road for everybody that's a non-conforming lot, non-conforming house, which I guarantee you 85-90% of the lots on Little Ossipee Lake are non-conforming. Period.
You got about 8 or 10 of the ponds.
Yeah.
Right.
They're all
So,
the
I just, I would like this information.
The other one, the Arrowhead.
Question?
You know, I had 4 acres up there, and I still had to have a variance, because they wanted to put the house closer to the road.
They can't push you back more than 100 feet.
So, I mean, I'm not questioning that. I'm questioning procedure from here on. Our ordinance, the way it's written right now, says that it needs to have a ZBA approval for a variance.
Correct.
So if it comes back, the applicant applied for it under this current ordinance.
Correct.
So if it's something that's going to get changed, the applicant could withdraw his application. The ordinance could wait. They could wait for the ordinance to get changed to reflect that. Correct?
The ordinance is not gonna get changed.
That isn't gonna happen.
This is a state mandated ordinance.
So there's no, if the attorney comes back and says, well, I have a son that's an attorney, so there's never a right answer. That's why we have attorneys. So if she says it could be open for interpretation, we still can't change our ordinance.
Correct.
Okay, that's what I was asking.
You need a vote.
Yep.
You got a vote on the table.
We're still in discussion though, right?
Hmm?
We're still in
still in
discussion.
No discussion, and we've made a motion and seconded, we've done discussion, and let's vote on it. All those in favor of seeking opinion from the attorney? 2. All those opposed? Okay, guess we won't bother.
The other question is, how does this make a hardship? We have to go back into session to,
Yeah? Yeah. We have to go over their 4 items. Items they have to meet. Okay, I guess we're gonna move forward with the hearing, and we will discuss and entertain motions for the variance for an undue hardship.
Mr. Chair, you have to answer each one of those questions.
That's correct.
Okay, very good.
Question 1 is that I would entertain a motion that it either passes or not passes, that the land in question cannot yield a reasonable return unless a variance is granted. Anybody like to make a motion on that?
I have a question. What justifies a reasonable return? We don't have a definition of it.
We don't.
So
It's
what
an
is a
interpretation.
reasonable return?
It's an
Reasonable
interpretation.
Okay.
I guess
And that
it
is-
would be an interpretation.
And,
I mean,
But that would be if they were looking to sell it.
no, it's got nothing to do with it.
yeah, but I mean, I mean,
Reasonable return is your ability to use your property to its maximum extent. It's not a monetary, it's not necessarily monetary, unfortunately.
I would motion that, that they do, considering, it's Maine, it's winter, winter time's coming up. You know, we have some pretty harsh winters, you're gonna need a garage.
You gotta
is
speak
a
up
nice
just a
thing.
little, I can't quite
Sorry.
hear you. That's
I'm
okay.
saying that I motion that they do meet criteria 1, based on what you had just said. It's Maine, we have tough winters, you get bad rains, you get, so a garage would be, would fall into that category, I believe.
Mr. Chair, everybody needs to understand, what this question is asking.
Right. And,
You can't associate personal use.
yeah, that's correct. And in the state, and that was also referenced in the letter that we received from the DEP today, that a reasonable return is that you have the ability to use your land. And it's not necessarily to a maximum return, unfortunately. And they do have that ability to use their land because they have a structure there, they can enjoy their structure. This is an amendment to the structure. So, that's, and it's not always, and you can't always look at a monetary return. That's not always the criteria. So,
I guess without a definition, I mean, if you look at Webster's, it's a rate of return is a gain or loss on an investment over a specified time.
that's a rate of return, this is a reasonable return. There's
Right.
two different things. It's two different things, and it's an interpretation of someone's belief and what you think is a reasonable return on your property, someone else may not be the case. What the courts say is that a reasonable return is use of the property through its intended use, which is single-family dwelling on a lot designed to be single-family dwelling. The accessory structure of adding a garage is not
Is not relevant.
It's not
Is not
a
relevant
necessity
consideration.
to live and use that property. So you gotta keep that in mind, because whatever decision we make, if someone decides that they don't like our decision, they're gonna overturn it, and the courts are gonna look at that. And you gotta keep that in mind. But there is no true definition of a reasonable return.
Because in the letter, they actually says just the use of it is a reasonable
Correct.
return.
So,
If I may, though,
I don't know.
You close the public hearing.
Yeah, we closed the public hearing
but
at this
but in
point.
fairness, you're getting comments from the code enforcement officer while you're deliberating, and it seems to me that,
I'm your municipal officer.
I understand that.
Yeah.
I recognize it. I was just gonna clarify a legal point, that's all.
You can open up public hearing again if you,
Okay. I will do it because I think everybody should have an opportunity to speak. So at this time, I would like a motion that we reopen the public hearing.
I make a motion.
Second on that? Yep. Okay, any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, we're gonna reopen the public hearing at 7:17 PM.
What I want to do is just point out briefly, you had made the comment about, if people come out and appeal the decision and do stuff. In this particular instance, there are no abutters, there's no residents that are standing before you objecting to it, and so
So they wouldn't
those
have
people,
standing.
those people wouldn't have standing to bring an appeal at this
I
point.
understand,
Okay. Thank you.
I understand.
so now, Mr. Chair, you have to close public hearing again.
We're gonna close the public hearing again. Motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
Second, all those in favor? Okay. All right. So,
So the question still stands. It's the line in question, you cannot yield a reasonable return unless a variance is granted. That's the question you're on right now.
yeah,
And I think the ability to cover your equipment and then to house your property is a reasonable return. I think that is,
I would agree with that. ability to cover.
Cover their property, whether it be a vehicle, whether you keep your ladders and snow blowers, whatever inside, I think that is a reasonable request. I mean, those are things you need to maintain your property, and I think that's a reasonable request.
Well, it can't be a reasonable
Reasonable
request.
return.
It's a
Reasonable-
return.
Reasonable
It'd be
return.
reasonable return, and that's where you got a problem there, because they do have the ability to reap a reasonable return in use of the property. The garage is an accessory, I mean, it's,
Yep.
and I'm not trying to be hard about it, but it's reality, it's.
I understand, but the problem that we have is that, it's like you had said earlier, what's reasonable for you may not be reasonable for me. What's reasonable for me may not be reasonable for you. I think being able to put my lawnmower somewhere where it's not going to get snow on it and rust out quick, that would be reasonable for me. It may not be for you.
But it's a garage that's not necessary, not forbidding them from using their property. And there's a lot of property in town, a lot of property everywhere, people don't have a garage.
You got sheds.
So you gotta look at it, and can they yield a reasonable return without this variance? Can they use their property and sell their property?
In a reasonable manner.
Hmm?
In a reasonable manner.
You'd be right back to the shed anyway.
And they have, this property just sold.
Mhm.
Property was just purchased, so it's been done. That's the problem.
Temporary garage.
So, I've got a motion. I have a second. Any
What
further
was the
discussion?
motion?
Made a motion that he feels that they cannot yield a reasonable return without the variance.
I'll second that.
And you second it. Any further discussion? All those in favor of that motion? All those opposed?
So what that does, obviously, is...
2 to 3.
Correct.
Yep. Okay, so motion 1,
Mr. Chair, if I may, they need to meet all 4 criteria.
but if they fail in any one,
Yep.
but we still need to go through, so we're gonna go
Okay.
through them all.
All right, very good.
Yeah. We're gonna go to 2 and make, entertain a motion for the need of a variance is due to the unique circumstances of the property and not the general condition of the neighborhood.
I'll make a motion to accept that.
Seconded.
Any discussion? All those in favor? 5 agree, 0 to disagree. Item number 3, entertain a motion granting the variance will not alter the essential character of the locality.
Make a motion to accept that.
Second.
Second?
Yep, I second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? 5 agree, 0 disagree. Motion number 4, entertain a motion that the hardship is not the fault of actions taken by the appellant or a prior owner.
I'll make a motion to accept.
Second? Discussion? All those in favor? 5, 4, 0 against. Now we have the additional variance standards. Before a variance can be issued, the board must determine, in addition to its findings of undue hardship or practicality difficulty, that the granting of the variance would not negatively impact the best interest of the community. So I would entertain a motion.
Motion, we accept it?
Second?
I'm sorry, who made the motion?
Hmm?
Okay.
Any discussion? All those in favor? I agree, 0. Number 2, undue hardship shall not be construed to include self-imposed hardships and an inability to realize as great an economic gain as would be possible if the variance were granted, or a hardship that is not unique to the applicant's land. Guys understand that? I'll read it again. Undue hardship shall not be construed to include self-imposed hardships and an inability to realize great an economic gain as would be possible if the variance were granted, or a hardship that is not unique to the applicant's land. Basically, they're asking the questions that were asked prior to this.
I accept that, I make a motion to accept that, or to agree on that. The applicant is not self-imposed. The applicant could have gone for a lot more economic gain. So I agree with that statement, or make my motion to agree with that statement.
Okay, second on that?
Second that.
Okay, any discussion?
Is it? I guess
I may have a question, that's why I haven't moved it forward here.
Yep, I can tell.
Yeah. Just this inability to realize as great an economic gain, I'm concerned about that wording, but may not come in, that's, hardship shall not construe to include. Okay. All right, well, we get a motion and a second, we've had a discussion, all those agree or disagree? All those agree? 5-0. And a variance, if granted, should necessitate only a slight departure from the stated requirements of an ordinance, usually not to exceed 15%, increases or decreases from the stated requirement.
$6 feet for forward, 15 feet from the 100.
Where we at from the 100, where we're at?
6 feet is, it was 15%, so it would be 15 feet from the 100, or 6 feet from the forward.
That's always been a guidance. It's
It
not a
has.
steadfast. That's a guidance.
It's just a
That's what you
guidance.
said before.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's why that word usually, and I hate that word,
All right.
but it's there.
It's-
So the board doesn't need to vote on
Exactly.
that because it's just a matter of, it's just a statement. It's not requiring a vote.
We're not required by the state to maximize at 15%. That's
Correct.
the typical recommendation, but it can alter from that.
Yep.
So I would entertain a motion that, do we agree? That should a variance be granted, is a necessity, only a slight departure from the stated requirements, usually not to exceed 15, but it can exceed it, 15%.
Well, again, you're not looking for a vote here. It's just a statement of fact.
Just a statement,
Yep.
that's all, a statement of fact. So I'm asking for a motion on that.
Well, there won't be a motion, Mr. Chair, because you're not voting on it. It's just a recommendation.
We still don't have to have a motion to agree or disagree with that statement. Just asking,
It doesn't,
because we did on the previous two.
yeah,
Right.
but you can't disagree on a statement that's in writing. I mean, all it is it's giving you guidance of 15, usually 15%, if the variance was granted. But do as you wish.
Yeah. Then I'm not gonna entertain a motion. How many people agree with that statement? That,
There you go.
not really. Okay? Any disagreements? Did you agree or disagree? Okay, very good. Number 4, a variance if granted must not subvert the intent of the town's comprehensive plan, this ordinance or local subdivision regulations. You missing something?
You didn't get the other 2 pages?
Yeah,
The other page? Hang on.
did you give that? Yeah, it was finding the facts, but that last item, number 4, I don't have a agree or disagree, so let's get that.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize you didn't get the very last piece.
Okay. I'll read question 4 again. A variance if granted must not subvert the intent of the town's comprehensive plan, this ordinance, or local subdivision regulations as manifested in the language of the plan of the particular provisions from which variance is sought. All those agree with that statement? 0. Number 5, a variance if granted must not have a harmful effect on the use of the nearby land and structures insofar as that the land is being used in conformity with state and local land use ordinances and regulations. The board in granting a variance may attach appropriate conditions which will avoid harm to adjacent property owners and the public. Board agree or disagree with that statement? I would agree. All those, 5? 0. Okay. Unfortunately, you know, you have to meet all the criteria. If you miss one of those in undue hardship, then we have to deny your variance request. And motion, item 1, motion 1 was voted 2 in favor and 3 disagreeing with it. Therefore, we have to deny your variance request. So at this point, I need a motion from the board to deny the undue hardship based on the fact that item number 1, the land cannot yield a reasonable return unless a variance is granted, was not approved by 3 votes of disagree and 2 that it did meet the standards.
What are we voting on?
We're gonna make a motion and we're gonna we have to deny the variance based on the fact that they did not meet all of the hardship, undue hardship criteria. They failed on question 1 to meet the standards. And like I said, unfortunately, on variances, it's gotta be all or nothing. You miss one item, that's it. Nothing we can do about it. Okay? So that's the motion. I'm looking for a motion on that. And a second for denying the variance.
Make a motion to deny the variance based on the fact that under undue hardship, the land in question cannot yield a reasonable return, was voted 2 to 3 to deny that section of 10.04.1.
Second on that?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor? It's going to be 3 to agree. Disagree with the motion? So, okay, based on the above vote, the variance is unfortunately denied. At this time, I would advise the applicant, if he is unhappy with the decision, the parties aggrieved by this decision may appeal it to the Superior Court within 45 days of the decision pursuant to 30-A MRSA 2691 and 4353 and Maine Rules of Civil Procedure, Rule 80B. Okay? At this time, I guess I'd make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?